Welcome to the Spinfoil Theory Podcast. Each week we sit down and discuss our favorite lore topics from within the Destiny universe. Specifically, we intend to take a close look at a specific question that has been nagging us and potentially the Destiny community as a whole. To fulfill that, our discussions tend to assume that you already have some background in the Destiny lore. Despite that, our goal is to be as lighthearted and welcoming to everyone as possible. With that out of the way, let's dive into this week's topic.
Perfect. All right, well, I mean, we have our intro and stuff pre-recorded, so it's really just, I guess I'm just going to kick it off here. Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is going to be with our very special guest, Rhino, a 666. I like to have it trail off like you're a predator, like 666. He's a very, if you're not familiar, he is a great creator and in like physical and content. You do it all, just making stuff.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. But he's if you might know, one of his particular specialties or like special areas of lore is some of the weapons. So I've invited him on here today, and I think what we're gonna do is have a nice little talk about some Omolon weapons. They seem to be the most like space magic-y.
Yeah, absolutely. They're on the cutting edge of tampering with things they probably shouldn't.
And so for anyone that doesn't know, I'm just a very brief breakdown of how Omolon works. They seem to use like a liquid ammo, and the launching mechanism. I mean, I'm going to defer to Rhino on this, but the launching mechanism seems to be like, there's a couple different possibilities as to how that work. I don't think it's like super soak technology. I don't think it's trying to use compressed air to launch the bullet at you. But yeah, the bullet's made of liquid. If you never noticed, one cool thing I noticed back in D1 was like the Omolon scout rifles, right? You can see it when you reload and while you're shooting, the water slowly like empties.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's back up, yeah.
And it told you it showed you what element it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, based by the color, so you could tell if you had a solar scout or a void scout or an arc scout just by the color of the liquid floating around in there.
I used to love that. When I ran around back when 450 ARs were king, I used to run around with the number, and I used to always think it was like my little orange soda.
I guess it could be shooting. It could be shooting some sort of like Shasta. That would be the rare scout rifle.
The burn.
They'd be the name brand is reserved for like the legendaries and exotics.
Okay.
like you don't get Suncoast until you get like that exotic drop, Sunkissed or whatever.
I love that. I also would have accepted the exotic shoots Orange Julius at you.
Yeah.
The exotic burn is diabetes.
Yeah. Can you imagine the more you shot your enemy, the bigger they got until they just couldn't move?
Oh God, that sounds like something. Did you play Destroy All Humans? That sounds like a gun you would get in there. Like you just fill them up with it till they pop.
Yeah.
A little back on track here. I have always thought that one thing that was really cool about the Omolon weapons was that they shoot like the little liquid bullets like we talked about, but I always envision that because like when liquid just like exists in air like that, it's like round, and I'm sure I imagine the shape changes maybe to become a little more conical as it's traveling, or at least like maybe like a little more like oval shape. But like that was always really interesting to me because like I feel like you could do some wacky shit when you have like a round amorphous bullet.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So I guess the first introduction we had to like really the inner workings of an Omolon weapon was in D1, of course, but with hard light, because it was really it kind of explained the most as to how Omolon's projectiles worked. which it was a prototype for all the weapons that we know now, or a prototype. It was like the precursor to what we think of Omolon now. And it was developed in a way that it would shoot a polymer composite bullet, and that liquid ammo would harden mid-flight. So there was like this air of speculation that we all had, that why does the bullet all of a sudden become rubbery, bouncy, super laser show, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the coolest features about that gun was the ability to switch the element as you were shooting the weapon. Back in the day, it was horrible. It didn't have any of its impact.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that even in the lore, it talks about how the damage doesn't fall off, but we know that not to be true nowadays.
Yeah.
with the recent nerfing, but
oh man,
but yeah. So I can remember in D1, I mean, we just speculated, and so Omolon is kind of like, they're kind of like the experimental. They're kind of, I always think of them as like the mad scientist in the laboratory messing around with stuff they probably shouldn't be messing around with. Like, oh, look what we figured out. Here you go. Let's put it in a gun.
I always felt like they're the version of the story if Robin Williams, when he invented flubber, had like just immediately tried to weaponize it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like if the bad guy from Flubber got his way, like that's what would have happened.
Yeah, he took it. He he got different flavors of flubber. He loaded it. He loaded them up. I really dig that. I really dig that juxtaposition, just because it's and now, at least with this season, with the Falling Guillotine, we know they're into swords too. They're into like other weapon areas, and I always kind of wonder, like, how they talk about if a lightsaber was going to exist in real life, it would probably need to be like a little more contained. Like you'd have to have two ends, and it would probably be something like plasma.
Right. So that's funny you bring that up. There are some real lightsabers. I'm sure you can look them up on YouTube, but people are actually making lightsabers now, and they
cool.
actually are, they're more like the old Knights of the Republic lightsabers, where they had the little suitcase thing that was strapped to their hip or whatever with the battery and all that.
Oh, right.
But they're doing it, and they work. Cool. Yeah, they use this long rod of tungsten, and they electrify it, and it turns into plasma, and it can cut through just about anything, I guess. Not everything. I mean, it's not, as soon as you touch it to something, it just instantly turns into fire. But yeah, it glows super hot. You better not touch it because it's going to burn you. So that kind of thing.
Whenever I think of tungsten, it goes back to, I think probably like elementary history class, but it goes back to like Thomas Edison, and now I'm just imagining like steampunk Edison and steampunk Edison and Tesla like having lightsaber fights with like giant battery backpacks.
Imagine if they figured it out back then. I mean, they kind of, I guess Tesla he was on the forefront of a lot of stuff, and he was playing around. He's probably the Omolon of the steampunk era, if you want to kind of call to that. But I mean, the idea of having lightsabers is not that far away now. I mean, we've figured out how to use plasma as a cutting torch. In fact, I was using it yesterday.
That's so cool.
We have all kinds of developed technology. So sci-fi has always been really rooted in a lot of what can we do with the technology we have available now, and just kind of advance it forward enough to where we're like, wow, that seems like magic,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in regards to like Destiny, maybe Omolon is kind of like that forefront of just dangerous technology type of, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, they're doing they're applying the research super quick.
Way too quick, maybe.
Yeah. they're diving right in, and I kind of like that. I kind of like how the I can't wait to see how some of the other foundries as they come into more from a lore aspect. I can't wait to see how they go because like Vice seems to have this like no, but like let's shoot them with poison bullets like or
Hmm.
like with many
Yeah.
bullets like type of thing. And of course like Tex Mechanica like steals everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
They're like the nefarious cowboy type of, the outlaw.
well, what I really love about it is it's a really like funny juxtaposition for expectations because like they're the cowboy like capitalist like Texan guy, but they're also like hyper
Mhm.
capitalist in the same sense that they're like kind of like the Chinese knockoff, like air quotes like stereotype, like they're the
Well, yeah, yeah. I can imagine a lot of the artists and the guys working on these weapons, because I, I mean I stare at this stuff all day long, so I'm trying to figure out like what is going on in the minds of the creators at Bungie, right? Or the
Mhm.
people, outside of Bungie that have influence on Bungie. So what I can't help but think is a lot of these people are, they're doing research, obviously, and that's one of the great things about Bungie is they do so much research.
Mhm.
And so, if you just go back to history and what has that told us about um, the weapons of the West, a lot of these weapons were retooled, Russian, German, six shooters or firearms that were obtained through other means and then retooled here once the cowboys figured out how to make their own. I mean, they say Colt was the driving force, right, of the West. And
Didn't the quote that I believe it was an actual quote, but I admittedly only know it from like Hidalgo. But it's like it's something like God didn't make men equal, Mr. Colt did.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's really close. Yeah, God didn't make men equal, but Colt did. Yeah. So like the Colt firearms, and that was the capitalism, right? So Colt was really kind of latching onto this idea that we're going to capitalize on weapons and spread them across the West. And but the funny thing is that Americans, once we figured out how to um, perfect the firearm, perfect the hand cannon, perfect the little
yeah.
six shooter pistol. Everybody wanted it across the world, and they knew that we were, because we're like we were free. There are a bunch of free running cowboys being able to do whatever they want on the ranges, and once they were able to perfect the firearm where you could shoot more than one shot on the back of a horse. Oh man, that opened up everything. And so we were just making tons of guns and providing them to the world.
I really,
So
I really dig that. That makes that sort of makes the sort of juxtaposition how they're coming out, even in the little tidbits of lore that we get about the different foundries. It's making it
yeah,
like all the little more like spicy, and
yeah. So
I
the
love the
Tex
spicy.
Mechanica,
Yeah.
Tex Mechanica is very much the embodiment of the stories of the West as far as weapon manufacturers. So you got like Remington and Colt and all these other companies vying for top jock, trying to be the best of the West. And so Tex Mechanica is kind of like playing on that idea that to get ahead, they got to cheat a little, right?
Mm-hmm. Gotta be a
So
little.
they got to, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna rig a couple of competitions, in the Crucible and stuff like that. So
Does
yeah,
it
it's
take
pretty
with your
neat.
underhand, punch with your over?
Yeah,
Like super
yeah. They
like 1, 2.
step on your foot and push you down.
Yeah. Oh, I. So one thing that I've always been wondering is when you look at the Omolon, just shifting gears a little bit, sorry about that. But when you look at the Omolon sidearms, they have those little tanks
Yep.
under the front, and like and they
Yeah.
also fire like in the 3-shot burst. But it makes me wonder: is Omolon launching the sort of like liquid bullet we were talking about earlier? Is it launching it through pressure, or is it like because in some of the other ones it kind of has this feel that maybe it's like a like a railgun type thing. It's like the barrel is what's launching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the in the lore it talks about those liquid canisters, and I've even seen. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't like link it, but I've had some artists and some people at Bungie make comments about, what was the liquid or what was the propellant, that kind of thing. And basically, there's always the space magic quick answer, but yeah, those cans, like you see all over the tower in D1 and D2 in those crates, those tanks of pressurized propellant, right? So you imagine like hairspray doesn't just come out, it has to have a propellant. So they use butane now. But anyway, they have to have a propellant that will help the liquid ammo harden mid-flight and shoot out the gun, right? So there's this kind of like there's like this combination of forces, and so they leave it up to your imagination because they don't explain the exact science behind that. Because I'm sure we'd all have Omolon weapons if we knew that, right?
Right.
In real life, but the idea is the liquid ammo mixed with the propellant is kind of the magic combination that allows the gun to fire the projectile, right? And so you see these little liquid canisters in the scout rifles too, and you see them pretty much everywhere. But now, as things have developed, we're seeing swords. Like, where's where's the propellant in that? Is it just held in some sort of like stasis? Pun intended, right?
Is it? I wonder. Is it being like agitated? Like, how does it go? And speaking of the sword, you guys, I just want to put out there, like, have you ever felt more useless than the second blade on the falling guillotine? You spin it the one way, and it's like it's got two blades, and you never use the back one.
Hey, I never thought about that. Yeah. And does it fall? Like, is it really falling like a guillotine when you use it? It reminds me
I
don't know, man.
It reminds me of like if I were gonna make like a sword for an action figure, if I took like one of those the handle from one of those toothpick swords and I just like taped it to a razor, I'd basically have the falling guillotine. Like, just stick it in the action figure's hand.
That's funny. Yeah.
But yeah. So Omolon has like this kind of like weird repellent. It has an amorphous bullet. It has swords.
Yep.
It has swords. I'm actually really curious. I feel like, kind of going down the rabbit hole of like where I think they're going. I feel like if anyone starts trying to like weaponize the Vex milk, it's gonna be them.
No, it's not. It's already happened.
What?
It's already happened. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the Vex milk is being used today. In fact,
it was being
used. It was being used in D1, and you just didn't know it until recently, really recently.
What? Go on. Sir.
Yeah, let me blow your mind. So the Frosties boots for the hunter. Yeah. That we just learned that's Vex milk recently.
What?
Yeah. It's some form of the Vex milk. They use it as a coolant now. So remember in Curse of Osiris, we got a ton of weapons that were from the followers of Osiris.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and every one of those
vaccinated. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're vaccinated, right? So they are using the Vex fluid as a coolant, and whatever other magical properties they have to help the guns fire, do whatever they need to do. Yeah.
That's so silly. I didn't think about that.
But before that came out, we actually got an ornament for the good old sniper rifle. Oh my goodness. I'm flaking on the name. What is the one that has the AI on board?
Darcy?
Yes, Darcy. We got an ornament for Darcy before Curse of Osiris came out that actually showed the Vex properties on board. And it even has the omniscient eye, right? The very evil eye at the very front of it. So, yeah, the little Vex of the Gate Lord's eye looking type of scope. And then all the hoses running through it. So that actually came out just right before Curse of Osiris came out. And then we got all these other guns that had the hoses involved. And so Bungie loves to tease that stuff. So if you're ever out looking around before a new expansion comes out, pay attention to the weapons and ornaments that come out pre-season, pre-expansion, whatever. Because there's little hints everywhere.
That's a good call.
Yeah. I could talk about this stuff all day.
I mean, you're in the right space for it. We will make it. Bagels, I've been talking so much, buddy. Did you want to? Did you have any questions for the guest on the Omolon weapons?
I guess. I don't claim to be an expert on the weapon for foundries. It's mostly just I've been I've enjoyed the Omolon Foundry for quite a while, and particularly, I mean, I go back to like the Hung Jury and that sort of stuff back in D1.
Yeah, it's a great gun.
Cactus. Those are the names that strike fear into the hearts of enemies, sort of thing.
Oh man, I used to love the Cocytus, whichever way, I'm not sure, but I used to love that gun in the Crucible.
You know, I pronounce it Cocytus. But but I've heard so many English professors pronounce it like 100 different ways. So I think the ruling is still out on what the proper pronunciation of Cocytus is.
That's entirely fair.
But you know, it's funny in this day and age with all the information running amok. We here in the States, after years of bastardizing the English language, have been we've been appropriating other cultures' pronunciations. And so people that grew up with a certain pronunciation are encountering a whole new generation of people who pronounce it in the ways of other countries, because that's how they're learning from YouTube and from other shows and stuff that are pronouncing these things probably the correct way.
It's a really cool facet, I think, of English as a whole, but like particularly American English. I think we kind of take this to like the nth level. But when we've talked about this on the show before, and I know Bagels and I have talked about it, but basically like we encounter a new word and we're like, oh, like this is mine now.
Yeah.
Like, we don't make a new word. We're just like, let's use this word. This word is already great. We don't need
they have a word for a lot of the mispronunciations and the misinterpreted meanings behind things because it sounds like something, and they call it an eggcorn. So it's very much a real word. And so an eggcorn is this idea that people give meanings to words because they sound like other words when they're said and not necessarily spelled out. So one of the things that happened in America is people were running around saying, look at them eggcorns, right? But they were saying acorns, right? They were just saying it wrong. And so people thought the reason why it was called an eggcorn is because it was in the shape of an egg. Well, in fact, it was not. Eggcorn was just a mispronunciation of acorn. And then people applied this alternate meaning to it because they thought it sounded cool, right? They thought it sounded right.
Sure.
I like that.
So you got to be careful, you got to be careful that I don't think the truest way to know the root meaning of any word is by breaking down, the word in the pieces. You've got to go back to like Latin, and find out what does this. Well, and so, but that's the other problem is now you've got, all of these eggcorns running around. And so people will define things by what they think it means,
One of my favorite ones is there's an argument about anime. So is anime just animation from Japan, or is it, as it's used in Japanese, all animation?
Right. Yeah. Well, in America, we were kind of responsible for that too, because we don't use the term anymore, but we used to call it Japanimation, right? So people in the 80s and the 90s remember Japanimation. That was just the combination of Japanese animation. Like that was a way to distinctly differentiate Tom and Jerry cartoons from cartoons that came from Japan. And so we didn't have anime as a word to use to describe those types of cartoons. So what these guys were doing was basically taking Japanese cartoons, combining them and then making our own version of it, like Robotech, right?
Robotech!
That was Macross.
Macross,
Yeah.
yes. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I just
grew
did a
up on
binge.
Robotech.
I just did a binge through both of those. I started with Robotech because it's on Prime, and then also original Macross because that's the only one that Harmony Gold can distribute worldwide, but like that's also on Prime now. And so I started with that, and I went down the whole thing, and man, there were twists and turns. I tell you what, when you watch the whole Macross discography.
Fun fact. You remember the little motorcycle guys on Robotech? You know, it was a whole nother cartoon, but they made it all Robotech.
Yeah, that's Mospeeda.
Yeah, so those little guys in those armor suits, they were inspirational in some of the first Bungie games. As far as like ODSTs, Halo Master Chief, stuff like that. Some of the artists that were working on developing what the armored suits would look like use those as references.
I really love that.
Awesome.
That really makes me happy. I actually have the two Robotech games that came out for PS2. I've got Battlecry and Invasion. So like Battlecry is the one that's like the first season, and then Invasion's the little guys. They completely skipped season 2, but so I've got those two. Invasion is still in its plastic. That's how often so is my Simpsons Hit and Run. What kind of fan am I?
That's funny.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited because I'm gonna pick up a PS5. But PS5 is gonna have backwards compatibility through internet connection. So if like you have the disc to these old games, it'll read it, and then you'll play like a version that you just download directly to your SSD.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it's like how it's kind of how like pretty much like the modern game works too, right? So you have the disc that just kind of like it gives you the base stuff to install if you don't have an internet connection, but then it's basically like installed on the
that's
SSD.
way better. Why can't all consoles follow this this type of format of where you either get, I mean, they could just put it on a little USB disk at this point, where you get a physical piece tool to download the game, and then, you know, I know everything's going to be online, so there's going to be updates and whatever, but at least you've got the 100 gigabytes ready right there to download, instead of relying on your internet connection to do an hour to 2 hour install. Right? It's so annoying. It's frustrating. So, and then also you have a physical property. You know, that was something that came up yesterday when everybody was talking about Bungie, you know, vaulting things, and is this ethical, stuff like that. And so this idea came up of people being upset about how it's not going to be there anymore when you paid for content that was supposed to be there. And, you know, like your Omolon weapon might be curved on a shelf for a while, stuff like that. But one of the things that I realized way before Destiny came out was I knew that this was going to be a trend, and I knew that this was going to be a problem way back then when we were starting to see games no longer come on a disc for quick, easy, fast installs. And I knew once that happened, people are going to be able to do whatever they want. Because if you think about it, if you have an original Xbox right now and you have Halo 2, okay, and you go put Halo 2 in your original Xbox, you can play the game. If you have an Atari 2600 and you put Missile Command in the game, you can play the game, right? There wasn't some update. There wasn't some, you know, vaulted expansion. You know, that it didn't just disappear one day, right? It's still there. And so I knew as soon as Destiny was coming out that we were headed for this new frontier where one day, you know, they're just gonna have to delete or change the base. You can't go to Destiny 1 and play Destiny 1 the way it was the day you got it. It's been changed. There's no way.
It's been changed a lot since day one. And end of life, or not end of life, but like end of updates, Destiny. Like holy crap, you'd go in there. You honestly, like, you'd be probably, if you played that, you'd probably be pissed off when you got to D2, even as it is now.
Yeah. So one of the things that happened in the community is immediately when we recognized, you know, it was probably like 6-8 months into Destiny 1 when we all realized, oh my God, some of this stuff that we have, it could very much disappear and there'll be no record of it. So that was, and this is a funny origin story for me personally, but that was one of the reasons why I got into, oh my God, I better start taking pictures of this stuff and start recording this information as much as I can, or at least have some sort of mental record so that I can prove it existed. Because, things from Destiny 1 beta, we don't have record of. There's a few things we don't have record of that very much were in that beta.
Oh, the Aldrin scene?
Yeah, well, somebody took a screenshot, thankfully, and we have the old video on YouTube to keep recycling, right?
Yeah.
But no, other things like most people don't even know there was a shotgun that was called Fun Police.
Yeah, that's true. I remember because that's where Dude got his name from.
You can't find a picture of it. You can't find a picture of it anywhere.
Oh, well, what is it? So, I mean, and then there's
a picture of it, but
I love it. But then there's little phantoms, right? So like if you had a day one Destiny disc, that disc has Peter Dinklage's voice in it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You can't listen to it.
You can't. Luckily, we recorded it. But so if you've noticed, Ishtar Baxter, he's a part of the Loose Cannon show, but he started Ishtar way back when as a means to collectively start aggregating all this data. And so if you go to Ishtar, you'll notice that it's like everything pre everything pre Crota. Dark Below expansion, it just says sometime in Destiny, right? 1. So it's like if you look at it, you're like, when did this come out? And it's like pretty much, okay, well, that's when he started getting all this information and trying to collect it. And yeah, so we were all like, oh God, we better start recording voice lines. We better start listening to the guys, the NPCs in the tower. What are they saying? I remember one of Dado's first videos he ever created was him standing in the tower, sitting next to NPCs, and just with a pen and paper and a spiral notebook, writing down what everyone was saying, and then trying to make a video out of that,
Sure.
and then put that on Reddit. So this is the crazy thing that Hideo said today, or this is what I heard on the PA system, and so people were trying, because we were afraid that, oh crap, this could go away forever.
And I mean, in a way, that stuff is gone. The stuff they were saying around the tower, like even in D2 when it was released.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I know that there's coffee in Destiny is because of the Cryptarch. He had a throwaway line in Destiny 1. If you stood next to him, he would say at a random point, he would just say, more coffee, more coffee.
I like that, and I really like that that the stuff grows. Like you really have to little tidbits like that. You kind of have to be there in a certain space of time.
Yeah,
and I know that there's a lot of like people upset with like FOMO. I don't think that's what this is, because this is like, these are not like, you don't lose anything from not hearing it, but it makes your experience more rich if you do.
Kind of rounds out the universe is what it does. It doesn't necessarily expand the lore, but it really just completes the experience of you being immersed in the game world.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And
I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Do you think, like little tidbits like that sort of use this as a segue. So the little lines, the little like talking about, I'm trying to think if there are any specifically, because there's like definitely political ones like Hideo says, but then I think like, to your point, the crates being everywhere, just sort of like, rounding us, bringing us back around the bend there. If I want to say most of the Omolon crates are over by Dead Orbit, right?
Yeah, I think. Well, are they now only by
They're not
Dead Orbit?
only there, but they're mostly over there. I still want to say that's where like the largest.
One of them is in the farm too. Like one of them is in the farm. I can't remember.
And I want to say the Drifter originally was hanging out by some. There's like a couple Omolon things and like a vending machine.
Yeah, there's a lot of little clues. I mean, the guys in the writing team at Bungie, they definitely have a thematic representation of where they want to go, and they're all sharing the same resources. So they basically know. It's kind of like if you think of the three factions, the main three factions and the Vanguard as a separate entity. You think of the main three factions as, okay, you've got you've got very rigid, structured, almost, almost like this is the way, there is no other way, monarchy. And then you've got the future war cult who's just, the future war cult who's just tampering with stuff, and all they want is, to win the war because they see it as an inevitability. And then you've got Dead Orbit who's just like, we got to get out of here and start over, and then so everything that goes along with that, they try to find commonality with, like, what are the weapon foundries
ideologies.
Exactly. So they've got to, obviously Dead Orbit's going to be around some people that have a semblance of their types of ideology, and so is Future War Cult, and so is New Monarchy, which begs the question, like, if you think about certain weapons, and I'm going back to D1 because maybe D2 is a little bit more flooded and everybody's just kind of cool with each other now. But back in D1, when there was like this actual separation of ideologies, like you said, they really didn't want to have anything to do with one another. They just knew they had to work together. And so it was kind of like this commiseration of forces, right? So I can't help but think, like, well, why wouldn't Dead Orbit have an Omolon weapon, the hung jury? Why wouldn't, Future War Cult have a truth-like rocket launcher? Why wouldn't, New Monarchy, who knows what they have? I don't really care. No, I'm just joking.
Are you a Dead Orbit fan?
Yeah, I'm a Dead Orbit fiend.
You're a Dead Orbit fan? I'm Future War Cult through and through, personally.
Yeah.
But I think that's more, and I those two definitely. I feel like, sorry, like anyone who picks New Monarchy, I feel like who is the VA for him, for Hideo? Because like
the VA,
voice actor. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Because I know Dead Orbit. I never remember his name, but he's a famous actor. And then I can't pronounce her name, but she's a famous actress. Like, you've seen her in a bunch of stuff. And then I'm like, and then there's Hideo.
James Remar.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Like,
Triple Wreck, right? Ari?
Is it?
I remember back in the day, people used to make memes of Triple Wreck in Hideo's outfit, which really didn't require much photoshopping.
Okay, you ever like feel bad when you miss out on a place and time? This is mine. I wish I could have been there for Triple Wreck becoming Hideo.
Yeah, look it up. It's online, I'm sure. Triple Wreck is Hideo. He used to meme himself on it, but
I love it. I absolutely love it. But yeah, it makes me wonder. Because especially as you mentioned in D1, there was a lot more sort of fractured allegiances and alliances in the last city, and I think that particularly just kind of had to do with how well things were going. I think the Red War kind of changed a lot of that, and I think that's kind of the result of what we end up seeing now, where you have a lot more overlap.
Well, the great unifier is war, right? So the idea that if you want to make everyone come together, you've got to introduce an opposing outside force that threatens the very existence of humanity. So when the Red War happened, they had no choice than to work together as best they could to keep from going extinct. Yeah,
and I think at that point, when you start seeing kind of like what you were talking about, Omolon weapons in other faction gear, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. But it's really interesting to me. I'm wondering what about Omolon stuff really spoke to Dead Orbit in the first place, and like part of me just has to go with it's probably just that it uses liquid. Something that you're much more like. You're not using lead. You're not using like any specific resource
using
you
a
could
little
run
bit.
out
But
of.
okay, so going back to Destiny 1, one of the things that stuck out in the very beginning of the game was Hardlight, and so bringing it back to that, Hardlight didn't have a visual representation of the liquid ammo inside. In fact, the shell around that liquid ammo reservoir was very much encased. You couldn't see the fluid inside. And so when it first came out, people were really interested. Like, where's the liquid? Where's the ammo? It's got a bullpup design. It's got a freaking magazine in the back. How does this work? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a prototype for Omolon. And so if you look at the grimoire, it describes it as an ionized polymer symbolistic attack platform.
Symbolistic attack platform.
Yeah. So what they're trying to say is that the ionization would have come from the propellant and the liquid, combining, and then the symbolistic, which would be the symbiotic ballistic projectile that comes out of it, because it's a ballistic and it's a it's that whole combination. So it's like a synthesized piece of space magic that comes shooting out the end of the barrel. And so if you look at the explanation for that, they're basically pointing to how is this made. And so they tell you very vaguely, the design team included several specialists, exos, and at least one warlock Thanadonaut. So that right there tells you, holy crap, we're never going to know what the hell Omolon is up to, because first of all, exos are rooted in mystery. Warlock Thanadonauts, they won't tell us anything about them, and everything they know comes from killing themselves and finding out what happens on the other side of death.
And flashes of memories. And it's really interesting, the description of the original hard light, because I think one of the ornaments mimics that for it in D2. It covers up that reservoir, and then the front of the gun kind of has this like shroud on it. I'm guessing it's because the components up there aren't properly encased.
We got the Frosty Frozen version a year before we ever knew about stasis.
Yeah, that's also true. Frosty Frozen. And stasis is going to be very interesting to see, because we're already seeing, I think, thematically with some of the larger releases, exotic weapons that kind of have a theme after our super. So
So this question comes up a lot, like how people ask this question a lot, and I see it over and over and over again. And I'm trying to explain it, trying to define it best for people so that they can understand in just a simplified format without having to go into a paragraph of speech, right? So if you think about why is it a frozen, why is it ice, why is it, cold, stuff like that, the very simplest way I can describe it is, if you imagine entropy as the absence of any form of energy in a vacuous space, right? There's not going to be any warmth from anything. It's going to be very much frozen. So if you bring entropy into a very physical space, or a place that's all warm and fuzzy, what's it going to do to the elements around it? What's it going to do to the environment around it? I mean, it's going to very much impose itself on that. So if you bring entropy, like if you could hold entropy in your hand and then just throw it out in your front yard, it's going to be ice, because the very absence of every elemental form of heat, warmth, it's going to act in opposition to your environment.
I think that kind of arrives at a similar conclusion I think we've come to on the show, is that it really follows a sort of theme if you think of all the light-based powers we have as different forms of radiation. Speeding up of molecules, and then you have this being the first darkness power that you get, and what's it doing? It's slowing them down.
It's removing the energy from the equation, so the average kinetic motion of the molecules is slowing down, aka the temperature lowers.
Yeah, you've got nothing vibrating anymore. So you've got you've just got this emptiness. they say the inevitability is everything will be entropy at one point in time.
Right.
So one thing that also is really interesting to me about the power, since we're talking about it, is in almost literally every other case, like water and motor oil are the two weird things in the universe when it comes to freezing and heating up. So like water is the only thing that expands as you make it colder.
Yeah.
And then motor oil is the only thing that that like thins out as you or that like gets more viscous as you heat it up. Like for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes, sorry, like science fam, if you're like, no, Taylor,
Sure.
there's like 8 other things. Like, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there are a lot of things. It's cool. No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, so all we can do as humans is try to relate what we know in the sci-fi realm to our surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as far as Bungie goes, as far as the sci-fi writers go, they have a very good understanding about these types of things, and they're doing their best to relate it to the most scientific explanation they can, mixed with a little bit of mystery. So like you think about like your reference to water and oil and how they react different to different types of either heat or cold. That's all contained here on Earth, right? You don't know what's going to happen to those particular objects until you're in space or until you're in a completely different type of environment, right? So when you think about things like, which is a very real thing now, as you think about things like when you think about the molecules of synthetics, when you think about stretching out those synthetics until they're vapor thin to where you can hold them in your hand like a cloud, like Neil deGrasse Tyson's quotes here, Tesseract. He has NASA has developed a way to take a very synthetic material, which is a petroleum-based material, and stretch it out so thin that the molecules are so far apart that it has almost zero weight when you hold it in your hand, but it's very much there, and you can see it. So, I mean, it's amazing what we're able to do in this world today with just what we know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you think about like, well, okay, so that's a thing. How do I incorporate that into this into Destiny? So these guys are very much fans and educated people trying to use what they know of the world and science and incorporate it into the game as best they can.
Yeah, I really love the. I feel like they go the extra mile.
Yeah.
To like apply like even theoretical science.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's the other thing too. It's like some things are popular now, or some things get explained later. So obviously, there's an expiration date to a lot of this stuff. Because when we learn new information, or when we have new proofs, new discoveries, old ideas start to fade away, like string theory. Those things start to fade away as we start to understand more about the universe going on.
And I like it, especially when you bring in space magic, you can kind of skip like, oh, you ended up being
exactly.
wrong.
Yeah,
you ended up being wrong science-wise, but then I got space magic to back it up.
Door. Yeah, they got to have a back door, a trap door, a way to get out in case they need to.
Right.
There's always, every time they make a room, they got to have a way escape hatch.
I really like that. I really like that. Now for you. I guess I'm curious for this. Like, what is your favorite? The way the conversation's going, what is your favorite sort of application that they've taken from like real world mechanics or something and applied to a weapon or gun specifically, or just weapon in general? Maybe you have like a different feel to it. Like, what's your favorite?
Know.
What's your
I mean,
favorite? Like, yeah.
If I had to like cite. I don't know, man. I love them all. I think all of them are really cool. I mean, that's one of the great things about the game is just the weapon diversity. The idea of all of the different types of guns you get to play with in the game. and how they all work so different. So I really like that. I mean, it's frustrating at times.
Yeah.
I mean, I really can't pick just one. I like the idea behind all of them.
It's kind of the medley of how all these, like, you've got your Western style weapons, you've got your futuristic science fiction type weapons in Omolon, with the liquid based packs. You've got basically everything you can imagine in the Destiny universe as far as weapon design goes, and the medley of all of that is kind of what makes it fun, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't know how you
yeah,
feel about it, but that's kind of my thought process.
yeah. I agree. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I just like all the guns. I mean, if I had to pick just a gun, to be like my favorite gun, as far as lore goes, it would have to be Stalker BNGL, which is the old rare Destiny 1 scout rifle that you get in a random drop running around circles on Venus. But it as far as guns go, it had one of the coolest graphic designs on it. It had a bangled tiger's head on the side of the gun,
Sure.
and nobody paid attention to it. And so that to me was like the epitome of gamers and they're just not caring. They immediately dismantle something blue, but when you look at the gun, you're like, wow, this is really cool, and it actually fired pretty good.
Skin. I can dig that. I guess I really like that answer. I guess for me, I really like how they apply a lot of like real world mechanics into the firearms in there. So like most recently, just because I was trying to get the catalyst done for it finally, Tommy's matchbook. Now I have the ornament for it. The ornament for it is it makes it black, like is one more notable thing. But one thing you might, well, right now, I'm sure, but like the listeners, you might not know, is that gives it a much more traditional sort of a like Thompson body. Like it has like a little bit of like flair in the stock, but like it's a much more like traditional body. And when you look at it in game, you can actually see that it's stamped. So it's got like a manufacturer's stamp of like that it's a repeating 45, and it's meant for like flame ammunition. Like there's that extra stuff, and if you don't aim down sights while you have it, you can actually see the action, which is also really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. Yeah, they have a whole dedicated team of people who work with weapons in real life. One of the Vidocs they did was showing off some of the field testers on recording sounds and taking video shots of real actual weapons using different types of ammo. I mean, they showed off. One of the sound engineers was trying to capture the sound of thermite exploding as they shot it with a projectile from far away with just like a little rifle, and they used that sound from that thermite explosion to for one of the grenades that you use in Destiny 2. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But even back in Destiny 1, they had they had a team of experts who they go to anytime they have a question or when they want to, put something in the game that they feel like it's important enough to be as accurate as possible, I guess. One of the things that happened when we first got the game was everybody's like, how does a gun shoot a bullet out of a bottom barrel when it's not even lined up with the, you know what I mean? Well, it's not even lined up with the.
Let me introduce you to my friend Madaba.
yeah, exactly. So there are guns, guys, in the world that actually do that, and they actually shoot pretty well.
The having the barrel at the bottom of the cylinder like that. For those of you who don't know, it gives the kick a lot more straight back, so you don't get a lot of flare in your shot. So you don't have the sort of cowboy action. Going back to our conversation earlier, cowboys, because they would traditionally shoot not only one-handed, but because of the barrel design, would typically actually aim at your knees because the reaction of the gun would put it in your chest. That's because they were taught to shoot one-handed also. I don't think modern ones have as much of that, but
yeah, And you got your, long barreled Dirty Harry guns,
I always I always wanted them to, if like everyone loves Dirty Harry, but like I was a Charles Bronson fan,
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
Death Wish series, and I
Yeah.
always wanted a Wildy to show up in like some game.
That's funny.
Yeah, dude. For those guys, Wildey, I think it is, but it's one of the first. I think it might predate the Desert Eagle, but it's like the first like gas operated big ass fucking hand cannon,
Sure.
and it's not a revolver,
Yeah.
and it has like, but it has adjustable. You can put different length barrels on it, and the barrels look like a revolver barrel. So it's like this little slide in the back and this big gnarly fucking like fuck you barrel. And
That's
Charles
awesome.
Bronson
I want
shoots a
I want
lot
a
of
barrel
people with
so
it.
long that when you look at the I want a barrel so long when you look at the stats, you can't even see the end of it,
Like the fucking Joker in Batman
That's
'89.
exactly what I was
That's what I was really hoping one of the ornaments for Ariana's vow would be. Since it's basically a
Yeah.
sniper rifle, is it's just like a really insanely like cartoonishly long barrel.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
it changes the animation so you hold it like a rifle. You're just holding the little
That's
barrel up.
hilarious.
I want it so long when I shoot an enemy at close range, it actually you can punch the enemy through with the barrel.
Yeah.
The Bagels variant also has a bayonet on the end.
Yes, preferably.
Make it longer. Make it a jousting hand cannon. Different ones there. I really dig that. One thing I'm always curious about, and I think comes up a lot, is especially when we get into like our vehicles that we encounter, they all seem to have either like ridiculous like rocket propelled ammo. I'm thinking about the Cabal vehicle we can drive, and or it like shoots like little energy blasts. Sort of like the spikes, the shrieks, the fallen bike guy.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Well,
That's something else. That's something else you brought up. That Bungie, when the creators were creating the Fallen, the pirates of the game, the Fallen, they used an old Japanese anime art as reference, which was I'm going to butcher the name, Mech Krieger, I think is what it's called. And so like you think about the Fallen vehicles and how they look. They're very much like World War II combined with some futuristic space shell, thingy that's combined with some weird floaty bits. That was very much an art style in Japan, and so these like
I really like that.
Apocalyptic vehicles that were basically morphing, these old World War vehicles like tanks and stuff, and then mixing them with the futuristic ideas. That Mech Krieger art style was integral in developing the Fallen as a species, race, whatever. So one of the things that came up a long time ago was, why is there English writing on a Fallen grenade?
Because they
in
stole
D1?
it.
And so they're little, because they basically stole our technology and they just made their own crap out of it.
They found some parts. They found a weapon cache somewhere, and they're like, "Oh, like consume, like enhance,
we need
replicate."
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So you think about the Fallen as a race. They're taking the tech from whatever they can find, and so whatever they've encountered along the way is very much the reason why they look and fly, drive, and whatever they have looks the way it looks. I mean, there's probably a reason why their servitors look like a traveler too, right? I mean, they're producing the ether for them, to survive,
and they worship it.
Yeah, they make it in the shape of their god machine, which was the Traveler at one point. So, I mean, it's amazing, right? To think of all of these races. And so the Fallen are a little bit easier to understand from that aspect, but the Cabal, because they're very much rooted in just this ominous mystery. They're morphs, for crying out loud. We still don't know what the hell they are. And Scions aside from being an enslaved race, their ships, their vehicles, I mean, the Leviathan, for crying out loud. those things, who knows where those things come from?
I am really excited because the number one vibe I get from the Leviathan is it's like space magic mixed with steampunk. Like there's just pipes everywhere.
Yeah.
True. It's very
You're
true.
running through, there's like pipes and fans and things overheat if you stay in there too long and you don't kill everybody. Like they activate the system. Like it's very interesting to me. But this kind of brings me back what you were mentioning about the Fallen just now kind of made me think of the story you gave for how the hard light was developed with the Thanatonaut and the exos, one person who's exploring past life / golden age, potentially memories, and other people who might like still have some,
right?
Because from their origin, depending on who they had. And it really makes me wonder if maybe like what Omolon is doing is rediscovering a golden age technology with their weapons. Because I'm thinking as I'm going on, like I feel like the time is gonna come where we finally get a Sparrow with a gun on it, and I feel like liquid space magic propelled bullets might be a really strong candidate because if you could just store it however you want on the thing. Doesn't really matter what shape it's in.
I mean, I guess then there's there's the whole idea like transmat and the ghost being able to retool freaking elements you find out in the field. So I mean, there's that, but I guess you have to have the data or the know-how to do it, right? I mean, it was one of the reasons why when we first started Destiny 1, we weren't just instantly cryptarchs all of a sudden. In order to take a rare or common engram and decode it, you had to bring it to somebody who knew how to do that. So you had to bring it to a cryptarch. But as you gain more light, as you gain more knowledge, you're able to do them yourself in the field. So you see an engram in the field and you run over it and then boom, it turns into a weapon. Well, now you're smart, right? You're smarter. You're able to do some of the things that the cryptarchs were. Now he's just a pop-up board in the tower. He's not even.
Yeah,
I mean, you just ignore him at this point.
Yeah, we hardly use him for anything. I think like maybe the 5 prime engrams you get each week.
Yeah. You got a bunch of shaders you need to delete real quick.
Missed out on an exotic you need to go pick up.
Yeah. Well, so bringing it back to Omolon, because I know you want to. If you think about Omolon as trying to recapture some of that mysterious golden age technology that we were probably not supposed to be messing with, and then you think about what does that point to in the future? Like, what are we going to see when we finally get Beyond Light? Whenever we get it, if it doesn't keep
Stone Crypt.
Yeah. So some of the things that have happened recently, as far as clues in the game, are Omolon aligning with the darkness, energy type of theme, and we've got some clues to that. So they're trying to use, because they've always been on the dangerous experimental side of things. It makes sense for them to be one of the first foundries to adopt a new type of energy.
That's entirely fair. Mm-hmm.
So
I really
so like they of course they're going to be like, yeah, hell yeah, let's make a sword that the Drifter can use and let's spread it all over the place and see what they can do with it. And so you've got that, but then you've also got like their shader that just came out in the latest update. It's called what is it called? Dark Omolon.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, they're very much playing with fire. So they're or the lack thereof. They're trying to embrace this new scary frontier and use it to our advantage. So they're not scared. I mean, they're not afraid. They're just crazy. And so they're hell yeah, they're going to go out there and try to scoop up as much of this darkness and imbue it into their guns as possible and start using it. And then I'm sure as we go on, other foundries will fall in line too and start to be okay with it. But that makes you wonder, like, who would be out of all the foundries, who would be like the last to try it?
I mean, the last to try it. I feel like it depends on how things go. If it's not very popular, Tex Mechanica. If like everyone else does it and like nobody likes it, be like, oh yeah, well that's why we at Tex Mechanica stuck
stuck to our guns.
Yeah,
most of their guns are kinetic style weapons, or that type of theme. But they already have a shader for the last word, which makes it look like a darkness ship. So maybe not so much.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Or ornaments.
The ornaments are so silly on some of them. And it's really interesting that you bring up that too, because I think thematically the first foundry who may have heard word or may have been asked to develop weapons in reference to the darkness we're currently facing, I think would have been Omolon, and I say that because it goes back to the lore about Dead Orbit. The lore cards where they're out at the edge of the system, and I think now we can look back and say that what that member of Dead Orbit was encountering was the darkness.
Right. Yeah, Dead Orbit. The reason why we were able to advance forward in the story arc at the very beginning of the game was because of a Dead Orbit pilot who was out in the middle of nowhere, who helped us start the array back up for the Warmind to come back online. So if that hadn't happened, if he didn't die out there for us, we wouldn't have been able to fight the hive that were flooded in that area where we had to make the satellite come back to life, that spot.
Sure.
So there's things like that. So yeah, the Dead Orbit's always been out there trying to explore beyond the heliopause if they can get there, and see what the next step is, what the next great frontier is, or where they can escape, or wherever they can go seek refuge at.
Yeah, I really like actually how the because Dead Orbit helped as you just described. Future War Cult helped us when we started encountering Predeath's ghosts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you think about it, in a lot of ways, they helped out in the same ways that Predeath was able to. If not for interpreting and receiving those messages, I don't think we could have gotten the Vault of Glass weapons. I don't think we could have gotten the help he eventually got more recently in Aspect. But and I think that's great. And then you have New Monarchy, who killed the Concordat.
Yeah,
because they were getting out of line. and took Hideo's textile factory.
Yeah, the plasteel armor was because of New Monarchy or Hideo.
He was and what is it? And what I really found was really notable about that. We go over this in our episode specifically about New Monarchy, but definitely worth mentioning again is he used to be very give a lot of alms, just really try to help poor people out, and just empty his pockets as he walked down the street. And he had to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And it's he doesn't really have control of his factory anymore. He can't really give away money. It's just owned by New Monarchy. He's like, oh dude, poor buddy. You almost had it. You almost had it all. So BagelZ, do you have any other questions, comments? I mean, I'm loving this, but I'm sort of running out of. I feel like I'm an Omolon expert now, among other things.
Yeah, I don't have any direct questions. It's yeah, it's just fun topic just to go into the backstory on some of these guns, because I personally wasn't particularly well versed in the backstory and a lot of these weapons coming into this, so I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming
Yeah,
at us,
no worries.
Rhino. For in the off chance someone knew about us first, where can your new fans find you?
I mainly am on Twitter at Rhino_666. And then I'm on Instagram as Rhino Props. So if you're interested in to see what I build, I make a lot of knives for people, but I also make other props too, and get one-off commissions. Most of the time I do commissions. I don't really advertise them just because they're kind of, they're personal for the people that I do them for.
Sure.
But the knives are really my creation. So I love to share those, like the different types of knives I make for people. It's you people that give me these ideas, because people come to me all the time like, oh, can you make a knife look like this? And I'm like, that sounds awesome. Yeah, let's try it. So it really it's fun. It's really fun for me. But that's my prop side of things. As far as the lore goes, yeah, I'm really stuck in the weapons. I have a site. It's called armorydefined.com, destinyarmorydefined.com. And what I've been trying to do is, over the years, try to compile as many definitions for all the guns in Destiny I can possibly do. And it's very hard to do. Not to mention the amount of hours you have to sit and just data entry and sift through all the BS online as to what something means. But then you also have to relate it to a real world and how Destiny fits in that. So I do that every Thursday on Twitter, and I do it in the form of Destiny lore cards. I make these little threads on Twitter every Thursday about a particular gun, ship, whatever in Destiny, and I just kind of explain it the best I can so that everybody can understand it and how it relates to Destiny. Not only, this word means this and it came from Latin and means that. No, I don't care about that stuff. What I try to do is really try to find out why it's important to Destiny and bring that into the definition. So I do that.
I really want to emphasize, and I know you share a lot of those on Twitter. I've had a lot of fun, following you on there and seeing your the different definitions that you've added and the hard work that you put into it. Like it's a better read. Like it's not just like he's saying, it's not just like a word of the day type of thing. Like you're gonna learn some stuff, and he really puts a lot of work into it. So I definitely want to recommend those. And his props are cool. They're so cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I may be putting money aside to get one. Maybe I have to do it secretly because my girlfriend will hit me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the age-old problem that everyone has, is like more time, right, to do things. So obviously, if I had all the time in the world, I would just make things constantly. But so I mean, I'm reserved to a couple hours every day in the afternoon, late, on just what am I going to do today, type of thing. So I'll sit down and do that. But then so I mean, it's fun. I enjoy doing that. So one day I'll have more stuff. I mean, I have things sitting on a shelf that just need to be done, finished, things like that. And so yeah, just more stuff will be coming. But for now, everything that I have is that I can repeat over and over, stuff like knives, helmets, pins and art.
So cool. It's so
Indeed.
cool. So do you have any shout outs? Is there anything you want, any thing or person you would like to shout out at the end of the show? Rhino being sir in this instance.
Yeah.
Oh, am I the,
Sorry.
oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Shout out to my crew at Loose Cannon. I mean, we do a podcast there as well, and so this was a lot of fun, man. Because over there we try to keep it a little bit more topical as far as like what's relevant in the game at the moment. And so we kind of stay on rails for the most part, but we are very loose, so we just spin off into nothingness.
Sounds familiar.
So you can find me over there on that podcast. We'll probably be starting up again soon. We just had some issues going on. You know, Baxter's got some stuff going on, and Anon's schedule has been a little wonky lately. And, you know, everybody's been on hiatus on a lot of things right now because it's just so, you know what it is like now. Everybody's just kind of just trying to find a new normal. So we'll be doing that again soon. But that's a show that I do with Baxter, who you know runs the Ishtar Collective that everybody uses to find out about Destiny.
Yep.
And Anon Pig on Twitter. He's a co-host as well, and he's really the reason why Loose Cannon exists. It's amazing. Like all I know about is weapons and how they relate to the world, because that's my obsession, and I have an analytical mind. But he knows freaking everything about the lore, and it's just insane what that guy can do. So shout out to Anon Pig, and shout out to Baxter, of course, because Baxter is like the guy that keeps us all wrangled in and not going crazy on these wild ideas.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's a big shout out to them. Just a second chime in on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Please take the SDP endorsement and go check out their show. Honestly, like if you're somehow crazy and didn't like what you heard today, it was us. It wasn't Rhino. Go listen to his show.
No, this is fun, man. This is really cool. I like what y'all are doing here. You know, Spinfoil is something that's, you know, I mean, back to the old days, you know, I mean, that's all we did when we didn't know anything about Destiny. All we did was speculate all day long and try to figure out, well, what does that mean? What does it mean? I mean, you know, it's kind of funny because I almost feel like, yeah, there's more content creators and more people doing it now, but you guys are doing it so well because of the resources that we have now available. Back in the day, I mean, we were just pulling stuff out of our wazoos, you know, trying to figure out what does this mean, and you know, we had nothing to base it on. And then 3 months later, we were like, we're totally wrong.
I remember those days.
So, you know, today I wish that more people would do things like this today, because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity at this moment to really get engaged. And there's a lot of lore, and I really wish people. I mean, I know there's big guys out there exploring the lore, but they're doing it in a aerial perspective way, so that you kind of get the big picture of everything. But they're really missing out on a lot of the intricacies within the game that can be explored, and people don't really know about. And if they did know about it, they would probably rewrite a lot of the stuff that they already wrote.
Yeah, I really appreciate the compliment there. You know, we're trying to if this was the Marvel universe, we're definitely the street level lore. Just, we're down there. We're protecting Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, you're in the trenches, dude. You're throwing the grenades, man.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bagelz,
keep at it.
Bagelz, do you have any shout outs, my man?
I want to shout out to James Remar. Apparently it is, if you know Harry from Dexter, Dexter's dad, that is James Remar. So he's been a voice actor in a lot of stuff. I looked him up on IMDb since we brought him up as a voice
that's
actor
who Hideo is?
Hideo is.
Oh, now I feel like a jerk. Of course I know who that guy is. I didn't mean to make him seem like less of a star. I was like, who's that guy? Who's Hideo?
So he's actually a pretty big dude.
I know. I'm a jerk. I'm sorry. Sorry, James Remar. Sorry.
But yeah, so shout out to James Remar because he's awesome. So
that's awesome. So cool. Dexter's dad is Hideo.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that tells you everything. I think that tells you he trained. He's like, my son is like clearly a murderer.
Well, you know that last tenant in New Monarchy is pretty scary,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's they're a whole thing.
Yeah.
They are a whole thing. It's yeah. I can't even, because we'll be here another 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just me like being mad, like about so I think that's all we got, guys. I want to give a shout out to our guest Rhino_666. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was a lot of fun to host you. And we really appreciate you taking the time. For those of you who don't know, we're doing a special morning recording, and he took one of the he talked about having only so many hours in the day. He took a couple hours out of his like very packed day to come be our guest, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Thank you guys for having me on. This was awesome.
Awesome. So yeah, with that, I am Taylor-B. You can find me online at thisisredleader on Twitter. You can find me in the temp chat as Taylor-B, and as of course here in the outro, you can find me on this show on all those great locations we list off. But with that, stay safe out there. Keep at it. We're making way. We're having fun, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 That's the end of this week's topic, but be sure to check out our past and future episodes on Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. If you have any questions about this week's topic, want to discuss Destiny lore with us, or if you just feel like reaching out to us, you can find us on Twitter at Spinfoil Theory, or you can email us via spinfoiltheory@gmail.com. Thanks for listening!